Hey everybody, and welcome to this week's garden video. Earlier this week I pulled out my jalapeno plants and I put them in pots. I overwinter them in the house and then I pull them back out next spring to get them a head start, so that's where they ended up going. I also pulled off the remainder of my tomatoes and pulled out my tomato vines. This is, it's cooling down so much here in the Northwest that it doesn't really make any sense to leave them on the vine. And what I end up doing is I pull them into the greenhouse, just set them in the greenhouse and let them ripen up, and as they get ripe I pull them into the house for eating or processing. I also pulled out the remainder of my bush beans and pulled them off the vine. I'm also trying just to let them ripen up and get into a dried bean state. And then I also noticed that the walnuts are starting to ripen up and fall from the tree. So over the next couple weeks, those will continue to ripen up and I'll gather and harvest those and process those. I did get a couple zucchini, which is kind of funny, and a couple more are hanging on. So as long as they're there, I'll keep them in the ground. And this is sort of what my tomatoes look like after I pulled all the vines out. I also have some lettuce that I'm harvesting now, which is great. I think some of it's going to bolt, but the rest that will overwinter I will, keep using. And this is a look at my garden, and there's not really much to talk about. It's kind of funny. It's just sort of rows at this point in time, empty rows. And that's fine by me, as anyone knows, and I've said this before, it's a lot of work, so I don't mind the season winding down. Here's a look at the other rows in my garden. There's my raspberries there and my dahlias, but really there's nothing growing, even though you see little things, there's nothing really growing in those rows. Here's my cat, who always likes following me around in the morning as I'm getting the shots. I do have one head of cauliflower, which is getting ripe, and I do have a couple teeny tiny zucchini, which are sitting there. And I do have some pole beans that I'm waiting to just dry out and use as, soup. Here's the last little bit. I've got some lettuce and some strawberries, and I do have a couple broccoli in the ground that'll hopefully overwinter. But here's a look at my greenhouse. I got some sunflower seeds and some other seeds sitting there as well as some cherry tomatoes ripening up. I've got my begonias that I pulled in, and here's the rest of my tomatoes. But really my greenhouse is just letting stuff ripen up. I thought I'd leave you with some clouds going over Mountain Peak from my hike this week.